Okay, it looks good. Which is taking its time, the usual. But I'm suspecting it's always streaming, but then the status is always off. So, I guess we are good to go. So, good afternoon or even good evening. Normally, I don't stream on Mondays, but I've got all the business development uh, topics out of the way. So let's see how far I can go. Squeeze in a bit. So if you watched the stream yesterday, this is where we were. Good now. Place our plant choice, basic whatever we chose. In this case, there's a hard-coded beans plant. And we could put it in one of these 5 designated spots in this. And took us a while to figure out rotation condition, because when this trellis was facing the other way, or actually normally it faces the other way, this is the rotated situation, things were not aligning properly, so we had to write some code to basically find the center of the trellis when it's rotated. So now actually it's respecting the object origin. And I think last thing we did was to draw a debug line from the center of the world to the middle of the trellis, and that's what we were working on yesterday. If that code would be receptacle here, find our well, get this immediate geometry that turns out it actually has a method where you can screen, it draws simple geometry. If we were working with 2D, canvas item would have draw calls. You can draw arcs, lines, circles, that kind of thing. This is not going to work is because for 2D. I suppose if you actually create a canvas layer, render something as if it's a user interface or like more like a HUD, you could still do it, but we need the lines to be drawn in the 3D space. We cannot really use this. So this is doing the same thing, but in 3D. So we squeeze in a bit of debug information the last minutes of the stream. I have not read this class carefully, so use these begin and ends. They're really immediate geometry 3D, you know. Yeah, when they rename all spatial nodes to 3D as the suffix, this will become geometry. But I don't think it is like that. It makes me think it's actually referring to this. So we added add vertex code, which is basically drawing a line between these two. The color seems to be a bit off. I was hoping the color would be white, but instead we see a dark line. So let's it needs a white color. But this still seems a bit limited. I don't seem to have a thicker line. Not only is this not white, but can I also make it thicker? Let's get some, say, I think this was debugged out line. We are trying to find something similar in the debug draw line. Let's start here. Debug draw line. Debug draw. Okay. Clear begin the lines. Primitive mesh. Color is white. It works. So the only difference is mesh instead of primitive. Let's also add that color. But this, I know this is actually one more. I say set this to red. Here's something to try. Let's turn this off. Yeah, it's, we know it's actually, and putting it in its own classes. Basically, put this in a script, assign it to this, and import it only when you need. Shaded material. Godot 3. Okay. And someone has already done it for us. The class. Is this what Joseph was? Yeah, and then we decided this was for no, but no, let's give this a try because it's suggested, and I said this was for 3D. Looking at this, mind you, this still, I think this is for Godot. maybe not. So take this code, just draw line 3, and in scripts, draw line, and we add this to load. So inside trellis receptacle code, instead of doing this, do this, draw vector. See, it's vector 2. Uh, what is the start end? Because if I give these two, it's going to complain about the fact that it's a different thing. Yeah. So what's the line drawer? Draw a line. That's fine. Yeah. And yet it talks about 3D vector 3 object. Doesn't make sense is that this readme doesn't match the code. Takes starting it and actually creates a new. How is it that his example works on vector 3 and yet this code here is saying And this, yeah, this is the reason why it's calling not 3D. So I would actually do the date, the calls draw. So it's actually doing this camera on project so that it takes 3D vector and creates a 2D representation on the screen, but at least that's what the example is suggesting. You should be able to pass in vector trees, get draw a line. And if I force it to be vector 3, actually going 3D, I don't do this. The fact that I actually listen to yeah, no matter what you're going to have that problem, it's kind of useless. Let's remove that disappointing. Yeah, it's doing what I'm is here's the line. Mesh primitive line strip. So then there's this line in the origins primitive line. Okay, there's some promising stuff here. Primitive lines. Instead of this, maybe we should strip. Because apparently there's something about lines loop. Good. This is it. That you're from nil to vector. It's not nil. It's set here. Line. So like that sample level. Looking at my render here, let's do this. What I get. There's an ugly line here. So what happens? Move this back. I think every time I'm doing this, I'm not clearing. That's the problem. The G should be cleared because I'm putting stuff in. Is also problematic. If I move this 2 units back, it's actually going to be a straight line. Now, why it disappeared, I have here this. As soon as I entered this area, it disappeared, like the trellises area. And the fact that it disappears is because most likely this is firing. Yeah, on container interaction is firing. Uh, this is actually no longer because I'm manually calling it. When this is called, this is most likely empty, and which means it's 0. And then the world, this is also preview. Yeah, maybe there's nothing to look at really. It's the vector is maybe. Anyway, I think it's some other day's job to make this immediate geometry its own singleton, perhaps, to have proper methods, so that when you need to do visual debugging, you include in your scene, so you could pass arguments like, here's an array of vectors and just draw lines in between them, so you get to see a line between the world origin and the fact that the color is like that is also worrisome. Let's they said assign shader that is actually unshaded. Uh, assigning the wrong. Yeah, and unshaded. See, that's it. So now we actually see the white color that we defined in the code here. This more like red, 7 red. Not sure if though if this is it, but now I'm overriding the. Of course, I'm overriding it. So can't we? What if it's on? Good. Pull the game to the side and white lighting. Zero different. Okay, this is used as albedo because I'm passing color from outside, but it is not used as albedo. It's actually always thinking. And this unshaded is not necessary because we are shading it, but we are just using external color as albedo. But then if it's unshaded, if it's not unshaded, it will respond to shadows, and unshaded it's going to be red. Now when we change this to blue, we should actually see blue line, which is good. So that's the blue line. So now if I need to create a debug, some like visual debugging, which means focus on this area. I need to draw a line between the trellis origin to each one of these 5 possible groupings, and maybe keep the one there's some distance calculation here when the mouse is over this trellis, that one of these spots is always firing that it's the closest cursor, and maybe we'll draw another line that is either different color or thicker. I don't think the thickness is something you can do. Me to mesh, say line, with points, triangle. This so why are these not listed on enum value? How is it that it works? Cannot. They're under mesh. Primitive mesh is mesh. So they stuck them under. The mesh array, we are not interested. Array type is line shape. Where we are. Render array as point. One vertex equals 1. Render array as, which is what we are doing. Every 2 vertices a line is created. This is when you pass multiple things, but then in each it's not drawing a continuous line. It draws a line between 2 vertices, then move to the next couple. This is the line strip that actually goes from 1 to the end. This is actually like this, but it's actually closing it. Every 3 vertices triangles. Okay, this is to create a most basic so I suppose we will need either line strip or line sometime. That's done. So what should I investigate today? I can either work on the debug visual debugger, or the fact that once I enter trellis space, I cannot go out. Even though I'm actually in the ground. The mouse exited ground, mouse entered ground. So I was hoping this plant would actually snap back to the ground. Ground object doesn't have any growing spots. Kind of understand that it can snap, but let's go to sample level. Let's create another Mr. Trellis. Here's Mr. Trellis. Duplicate it. Put it here. Do it. Here's two Mr. Trellises. Here are the bug lines. Trellis. Trellis 2. Planting, arugula, by this versus this. So it's actually doing. But ground doesn't have any. So I suppose when I exit the... Yeah, I don't think I'm actually doing that. Because the receptacle is an interactive thing, which is this basic thing. Fires its name when it's entered and fires its name when it's exited. But when we exit, we are not... I suppose I can prematurely do it. Here's but then I think I kind of need to... I cannot do this because when mouse exited ground, smart. Because as soon as I hit the ground, I'm actually moving over ground. It's, yeah, then the ground script will actually trigger this. It's going to be good. If anything, this should actually be put in receptacle itself. So this should actually have its own receptacle. I may have to put this in because create this every single time. This will be yeah, because the collision shapes will change. So I will always create a static body, assign the script, but I don't want to assign it here. So this should actually be here. Sorry, keep that. Take this. We are overriding it in receptacle spot. Anymore. This is already accounted for here on static body input. We just need to take those two other files. Two. Okay. Go and here's just for sake. No longer need this because and you don't really need to do this because it's already doing it subclass. But here, only thing you need to do is when a receptacle is firing the exit event, then it should also cancel the preview. However, this comes with its own set of problems because, well, if the mouse moves over area where the preview cannot be done, but it may have future implications. Planting arugula done. So here's the preview. Exiting this trace area will cancel the preview. Because we canceled it, we no longer have access to that. So instead, from player perspective, it makes much more sense that we still should see the plant attached to the cursor, but we will create a custom cursor that will basically say this action is not allowed because you cannot plant arugula plants just like in the middle of nowhere. So when it's here, that cursor will show, yeah, it's an approved action, so you could do one of these 5 spots. You move out, the preview doesn't disappear, but then the cursor shows you can't. So when you move to the area of this release, then it will show the enabled case again. So here's kind of an approximate case. So good. It should actually let you here. We should still have this guy snap to our cursor with the disable action, but as soon as you enter here, it will actually show enabled. Because we are able to move between 2 structures without any problems. So we could even have a third one. Let's actually create a third one. This one should even rotate because it was giving time yesterday, so it should probably -90. This is interesting. I thought I was drawing lines between the world origin and the trellis. Why was it drawn? Yeah, like these two are drawing it from this one is. Let's zoom in a bit and then see what. Let's see, this is again wrong. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. See, this is the same problem from yesterday, except we fixed it for 180 and 0, but not for -90. Because this should have 3 possible spots in the back. Instead, it's as if the available spots flipped with the front two. This guy here. The guy. We then moved here too. Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to write that visual debugger. Because if I want to understand what is going on between possible spots, I need to draw lines between. If those lines are visually wrong, that's my confirmation calculation. So This guy now has to be made. So it should be like a singleton. And right now, the way that's working, the process of receptacle, we are always calling this. Read this again. Okay, I think we need to do the process and every time we call it, we clear it. That's why rendering lines. It's always those two vertices that we want. That's going to be okay. I think I kind of know what. So this has to be create a new scene. Okay. Immediate geometry. Save yourself as the scene. I'm going to call it visual debug. This should have a script, which is scripts visual debug. Going to do this. It right. Sure. Why? Um, so this should be responsible for only drawing two lines between A, Victor, Victor 3. Okay, should get color. Color. To do this. Say default is. I think this should be passed to, but because we are drawing only one line, I'll actually do it line strip. That because this is the hard coded case. So then it will be some um, because you're already standing from geometry. This should automatically clear method. So, this is clearing the immediate geometry itself. It's actually visual debug. I may also pull. Well, I'm not going to make a distinction between 3D or 2D because 2D has a draw call, so that is actually covered. You could do anything you. This is what we need to do in the spatial case. So then you can also do all of this here too. All this IG is actually okay. So start by clearing, then begin a new line. Here's the color, whatever color. Hit vertex A and B, and so this is just a simple. Then we can have more. This has to be assigned a proper geometry here. Spatial, this unshaded, and albedo is use the vertex color as albedo. save this, go into call. I'm not going to call the script. I need to call the scene visual. Head on. So this is always going to exist with the project. Uh, so I suppose we need a method here to cancel the draw calls. Basically, turning this thing on and off will always be. I kind of remember project settings. Could was an advanced topic. I don't quite remember, but there is a way to. How were we doing that? Okay, this is project setting. I create a new variable. And if that variable is true, then this bugger can run. So we set that variable to false before we should. For now, I'm not going to worry about it. It's just for a demo. Tons of things to optimize, so not the right. Since this always exists, no longer needed. Inside this guy, we still need to make a call to the going to have draw line. Essentially this. I'm not going to pass the color because it's white. So we don't need this. So this could be my on and off. If I need to debug something, I need to be making that draw line call every time this receptacle process is run. So if I don't want to run it, I just remove the call here. It should at least work like this. Why did it draw only once? It's the same object. Demo is in public can play. Um, Perhaps there's a conference in May. It's called DevGam. Pull it up. So um, I think the demo may be close to the public. Being it's more for me to show it to publishers and investors. Um, so I'm trying to collect basically, gain public interest for the time being by streaming. I'm not quite sure how much of the demo I can by May. But my intention initially was to set the date and do as much as possible. So I'm constantly cutting corners as much as I want to actually do more stuff. I'm going to keep the number of plans to a few, that sort of thing. So as you can see, as it is, we are already struggling with the most basic game functionality. I want to do this kind of thing smooth. I guess the next step here is to click the button and then place this object inside the space. And not sure if it's in this stage where it's pleasant to look at and play. I may actually make it public too, but that's not my. But if I do, I'll let you play. But you need to find a way to contact me because I only see your YouTube handle. You could find me on Discord or Twitter, and then get in touch with me. Yeah, if I have something public, most likely I'll be announcing that on Discord. That way, you know about it. And at some point, definitely in the future, we'll have closed beta testing, but that's months ahead. And most likely, this game will be out in the third or fourth quarter of next. If I could actually get funding and more people, maybe in the middle of next year. But I don't think it's realistic to release this game this year. There's just so much to do. I may put it in early access, maybe building it. Okay, back to debugging. Let's run this again. So we have one successful case. Cool. Why is it that it's only working actually here? Receptacle. Each trellis, when it runs a receptacle script, each one should have a different translation. 3 lines. It's as if all the lines are merging. Do we even have... Oh, I just answered my own. Explaining a potential problem. Because I'm actually clearing the last 2 lines to draw the last call. This is the call that was made by the third. Where are you? Trellis number 1. This makes a call. Trellis 3 in this tree order from top to bottom. This makes it. Finally, trellis number 2 is making the last call. Therefore, the first 2 already. This being a singleton, it's clearing its first 2 draw line calls. See, I didn't want to create instance, that's why singleton, but I kind of need to clear it so that if I'm moving objects around, I don't keep adding vertices. In worst case scenario is this: whatever I want to visually debug, I stick it in here. Oh well, visual debug just temporarily disabled. Look at this. Vertex scene. Should you need to visual debug, here it is in the code. Instead of doing this, maybe visual debug. Oh, It's in your parent. Wait, no. So, looks a little bit ugly, but like these two are expected. This is the problem, kid. And where are you going? More importantly, can we what was that called? Kind of render above everything. Z depth. Because here's the problem. Even now, this white line is, I know that it's supposed to go to the center of the trellis, but visually it is acting as if it's a 3D object, and from this perspective, it's actually going under the trellis. I would like to see that line going over the trellis. In this case, like it's going somewhere here or here. I don't know where it stops. Like, does it stop here, 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 here? I don't know. The fact that this is the only rotated unit makes me think that if you rotate this, it's as if this is gonna actually fit in here, because look at it this way. If you draw a line here down, this is like a 90 degrees angle right there. And this is what I wanted to see actually, but it's drawing from the, so it's somewhat working. Position to preview. Okay, let's first try that. So you should still be 180, and I bet it will work. Yep. So when I change this to -90, I bet that line will. So it's kind of the same problem all over the place. This rotation thing is screwing everything up. For some chocolate for the old brain will help me. I don't think this. Works for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2. Was it just at minus, really? Okay. That's something Joseph and I were messing up with last night. Let's have more angles here. Should face the other way around, which is just a 0 degrees. Okay, and this. Here's an interesting case. First, this was not working, but I think it's a happy accident that it's working. It's hard to see, but you are still over the designated spots, those 3 spots by the black part. And then if you move, see here, you are kind of entering that far side close to the front. It's hard to pinpoint that part in the front that is sort of like near this corner, which is like in perspective this corner. It makes sense. If the player is having hard time, they will rotate the camera. That's fine. That's what the, so then you can do it. It's good that we are also testing camera angle. So from different angles, the functionality is still working. Okay, so I guess it was just that stupid minus thing. Yeah, we messed up with so many we messed with so many things yesterday that I think in the end we just happy working case for these two, but today this 90-degree angle messed with things, and that was just the leftover artifact of this thing. Because when we do minus, we are essentially rotating once more, which in the radiant world it's doing some weird. Okay, so this visual thing is still a little bit flaky, but the fact that it's kind of rendering something from this center to this kind of angle, there's this is probably going away into the tree, so we cannot see this works. It's as if it's kind of the opposite direction, sort of like when I'm putting the plant here, this is going in this direction. When the plant is moving away from this origin, it's as if this is sort of trying to go the opposite, like this. And I bet this is also doing the same thing. We can see it from the tree, which means why don't you move the tree? Move the damn tree. It's not the tree. The tree is in non-interactables. So use the damn tree. Okay. Gotta remember that I'm moving it because I always use the tree as the 0, 0. I'm moving it to 1, 1. Okay, now 0, 0 is here. Okay, sort of coming this way, going that. Here it's going further that way. So there's some this is sort of going away from us, sort of coming to. And that is basically whatever we are passing here. Let's see if these two are consistent. Minus 5. Uh, minus 5 or 3 in the x, which explains it, because if this is 0, this is in the minuses. And when to come here, you have to be in the minuses for z, so that explains minus 3, minus 1. And by being 0 is okay, because the bottom of this trellis will be on 0. So we are trying to draw a line between here to each one of these positions. But in this case, the closest but even though it's outputting the correct one here, still drawing it from 0. It's as if, okay, interpretation of this one. Oh, I think I found an explanation why these angles are always reverted. It is consistent because we are not rotating the coordinates, the world space. That explains why, considering this axis here as the center, that anything that we go away, like this spot and then whatever this preview is, they are kind of moving away from each other. Sort of the middle case. This is like when they kind of look at each other, and here are some middle cases here too, and this is going to kind of look gonna be closer. This furthermore, it's called it's not like we draw it initially and then don't update it. That's also called 60 frames per second. Okay, here's an easy way to test this whole rotation theory. Here is Mr. Trellis number 3. You should go back to your origin 0, okay? Render yourself. And these two will cancel their own calls. Are you even rendering something? If you are, it's going to be inside this object so we cannot see it. We have to figure out how to draw over the screen, which is that what was it, set as top level. This is really what it is. No. What if this is here? Faster. This is only going to work in 2D content. That's why we are doing 3D. So if things are supposed to cover each other, that's what the rendering is. So I think this is that shader area. Somewhere here, we have to force this shader to render to basically ignore the Z order, meaning normally in the Z depth, the trellis board should render over this because in the perspective, that's the correct order. But there is a way to override that. I know the right idea, just don't know where to turn it on. This is the one maybe. Yep. In the render order, and maybe we'll assign a higher render order. This. That's promising. That is promising. I think this might be it. That is kind of the center of this object. Anyway, no depth test. Yeah, that proved to be the one. And now this is in this perspective or orthographic camera view. This part is the middle of is the center of the trellis. My guess doesn't quite fit. I would expect it to be kind of here, and here. No, this is maybe correct because you don't really get to see the grid. And this is kind of working. A little bit awkward looking. What is this line? So yeah, you were right about the depth test. So it's no depth test. Yeah. And when we do transparent, I don't think it's it really. Render again. Something else. I think we are good here. This is for the diffuse mode. I think this is okay. It's just a calculation. Let's double check that trellis. if, yeah, that's 0, 0, 0, the bottom. So I know that the origin point is not entirely in the middle of this edge, because I actually extended the front part this much. So the center is kind of here. So from the top, if you look, kind of 1/3 in the way between these squares, that's your actually original axis. I had to kind of extend the front part this much, but the center from this axis, they are fine. So this is actually okay. The object center is it makes sense that it's here actually. Kind of corresponds to that. But why are we still seeing these? I have a interesting suggestion. What if we turn this into a tool? Will Godot let us see this? It's clearly not. Will Godot let us run this function? It won't. How could it? Because nothing is making this call. This being tool won't do it by itself. We should also disable this receptacle thing. Master thread is sample level. Not going to render it. So a question for you, Nigel. Are you interested in learning Godot or interested in the game? Because I know some people just want to learn more about Godot. I know there aren't that many streams out there. Godot. Because I'm kind of learning as I go too, as a figure. I've already released one game. It was a 2D game. 3D workflow is very new. So yeah, you're interested in both. Cool. Yeah, it's a different animal. So fun. In a sense, yeah, 2D is kind of easy, kind of not, because some people say it could be really difficult. I agree. But at the end of the day, you depend on the drawing, the art. There aren't that many moving elements. Using the stream as backgrounds sounds, yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid, yeah, radio was a thing. Just having some noise in the background. I totally understand it. It's not quite sure where to go from here. Let me at least trigger that function. At least we have some fun thing going on. Okay, I'm also noticing something else before I was going to test this function. I'm here. If I click, it's going to say now place this previewed object in the trellis. Here, here, here. At the very least, this should actually get us the correct name of the trellis. Now place this preview object in the trellis. What is the trellis? Give me your name. Trellis. It's number 3. Or number none or 2. Okay. And then we kind of trigger other events where we are storing the correct object in the object in the correct trellis. Create maybe a save file. Okay, what I was noticing was this. What if we removed trellis number? It was as if trellis 1 and 2 were interfering with the debug process. It explains that multiple line that was always sticking. Because now that I put it here, this each trellis is a visual debug, and each one was always running this visual debug. And because we have this problematic case that no matter where the trellis is, it's always rendering from world center instead of the object center. Even though these two objects, the trellises were here, they were still trying to use this world origin to render their own lines. Now we are only rendering the line for trellis now. However, that line is still flaky. So here's the line for this corner. Here's the line for this corner. For this corner. This is that, and like that. This is an interesting case. Line. The line is quite long in both these cases. Still somewhat long. Here it feels short. Here suspicion, more correction. This is good. Because we had to do this monkey business with the, that gives the preview position, which is the correct calculation for previewing the plant. But what if that position, because what if that position is kind of the wrong position? In other words, the rendering is suffering from this rotation, but we needed the rotation to render the plant in the correct place, even though it felt counterintuitive. Because the idea was, if those growing spots are within the object space, all I'm interested in is the distance between the object's origin and to Object's origin to one of the 5 spots, and those spots are within the object. And when the object is rotating, I'm not changing the distance. The only time this actually matters is because when things are rotated and moved in the game world, essentially the vector is changing from the world center. I get that. Is closest spot. Okay, you will always have one close. Just get me this, the rotated version. Just do this for me. I didn't declare. So let's do this. Or closest spot. And you are going to update that instead of internal variable, then this will going position 3D. So it'll actually give you position that, just that. Closest run. This is not going to exist. It's only going to exist when I actually have a have check here. It's good because I think initially it was rendering like nonstop. I think we've done it. So here is the line going from center to this spot. The cursor is still a little bit finicky here and there, but at least it's so. See, I actually disabled the rotation key because it was as if it was always rendering this line, but then rotating it. That's why this line always looked like it was going in a foul direction. Okay, so here's the preview. You can actually see the line. So we have some visual help there. That's cool. It's actually cool. Does it mean you move this object or we enable the other two? That world origin still hasn't, but at least this has changed. Finding the correct yeah, still that rotation key. When this is rotated, it's going to match. So at least for the time being, to disable this, what we can do is this. So when the mouse exceeded this area, we can closest spot is not. At least this way, when we exit one area, yeah, yeah. I was hoping you hit null. Null. Read it like put on some tea, feed the cat. Do that soon. So where were we? Oh, now you give errors. Interesting. It's freeing business. Okay, but what doesn't make sense here is, so let's disable this call here, which is in interactive. This business. This was for shows up to see what object normals were. We don't need that. So mouse entered raised bed, mouse exited raised bed, entering ground. I was hoping to see the Mr. Trellis here. Why am I still seeing mouse entered ground, exited ground? Constantly entering and exiting the ground, it's as if the Trellis object is not there. Doesn't make any sense. So I understand we are overriding it here, but disable this call. And disable this one. So how come we used to see mouse entered and exited interactive when this trellis was labeled as, yet right now I can't see shit. It's as if this is no longer firing this. That doesn't make any sense at all. Not that it's called. Why is this even receptacle? So this is never zeroed. It exists. This is no longer called because I canceled it, enable it. Okay, so that's actually okay. And when this is not rendering, the fact that it actually rendered something, it is not hiding itself. That actually is a silly thing to leave behind. So it's as if we need a method for. You should just have a. This is already, it's clear. This thing are your receptacle. You know what? We are going to use this possible, but not. This should also have a clear method. So if the closest spot exists, draw the line, else clear the line. Then stop asking why. And now when we do this and go away, the line will disappear. Bingo. That's good. So when we come here, this line will show. That is good. Here's the problem. Why is this drawing it from out of space? The fact that this is still drawing that line from world center is problem number one. It doesn't look like a problem because for this one, because this is already on the world origin or over the world origin. But I bet both are suffering from the same problem, and then this is suffering from a completely different problem. So what is this here? What is the significance of this value here? So if this is 0, 0, 0, so it's minus x here. and then minus z here. The fact that this is -5 here for the cube, and the cube projection is here, this line is here, so this is like -2 in z. It's -2 or -3. I think it's more like -3, and I'm guessing already why. It's that rotation thing. Okay, I think this rotation thing is the main problem here. When I remove the rotation from the end spot, like this actually has rotation formation, it's as if this now has to be rotated in here. It kind of seems really weird. This translation now has to rotate it around y by this much. This much. And that's kind of wrong. Okay. This is as if this line where it ends, that actually has rotated. And this is where the weird condition. Same thing. Because in this case, you keep the world position. World position is where the cursor is. Get parent trans. Just look at those values. -5, 0, -1. -5 in the x is somewhere here. 0 is ground. -1 in the z, it's here. It's always something here. Okay, -5, 0, -1. It's as if it's always this surface. This is -5, 1, 1, -1, -2, 3, 4, 5. 0 in the y, so don't elevate it. -1 in sorry, my bad. It's x -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is this, and -1. So it's always pointing at this. This is the line getting drawn, then rotated, or are the coordinates just wrong? Yeah, I just figured the coordinates are wrong, but it's as if it's ignoring the object we are inputting. It's as if the coordinate system is always showing this this trail. Regardless of what I'm doing, where I'm pointing, this is this print call is the result of this. What is my parents' board? Let's round them up. Like there's -5, -3, which is like, this is -3, I remember. This is -5, x. So, and then there's 0, 0, 0. It's as if it actually keeps looping between these three things. Because when I'm not moving the mouse, the process is always printing the coordinates, which is actually okay. Okay, I'm kind of thinking out loud. So it's okay that each object is outputting its location in the world. Since we have 3 objects, we get to see cycles of 3. The one in the center, the one a bit down, and then further down, it's that -3, -5 case. But this is exactly from this spot to the closest spot we want to draw. So here is where it doesn't connect. This process function is letting us know where each object's placement in the world. So the coordinates are okay. 0, 0, 0, -3, 0, -1, -5, 0, -1 for 3 trellises. So if that's their center, from there to the closest point, we should draw a line. So if for this guy, the fixed camera, if for this guy, here's its location in the world, from here to its closest point, if I'm going to draw a line, this is what I should be seeing. Instead, it resets the end part is okay, but this is resetting to 0 temporarily. Yeah, but clear my head. So most likely Wednesday morning, when I do my game development stream, because tomorrow is the day of meetings plus marketing, looking at schedule. I may tidy up a bunch of things, and some of these signals were added here a little bit prematurely. I may have a different game plan, unintended. I have a very basic idea. Idea is not going to change. Select something, bring it to an object space. This whole rotation business is throwing me off. Maybe I need to read more. I need to structure things a bit different because this feels slippery slope right now. I'm not making. I'm not working on game logic or business logic. Struggling with some syntax, basic knowledge. Could be the way I structure this whole thing because everything is sort of sometimes done prematurely, but I may hit that spot where better architecture is needed. Just don't know if I should tackle that right now and leave it in a very unstable position before I sign off. I think the best thing I can do right now is to decide what I really originally intended, receptacle and interactive, because I'm going to have more or less similar struggles with other types of interactive objects. So do we need a mind map? What did I have for some mind demo? And then I installed some. Did I? Think it was Miro, those names. Yes, I must have signed in with kinda too, but union diagram. You guys have some kind of UML structure. You can type UML diagram. But then people look at UML diagrams, they have hard time understanding it. So bye bye. Let's start from new board. You had something better before. Mapping and diagram. This looks. We have interactive. We have receptacle. Right notes. So I guess I could use this as receptacles. We will have inventory like item. What is the difference? Then we will have sort of action holder, action planner, action holder item. Can we give some kind of text here? Say the player's house will be an action holder item, meaning the house itself will be interactive because it will be clickable. We'll come up with a menu of possible actions for the player to take. That is going to be action holder item. Inventory like item. This is going to be storage box. Storage box that is sitting in the garden. We're going. This will create its own UI to drop things in and out. Then receptacle items are interesting one. We'll have in boxed trellis. We'll then have pots, and most obviously raised beds. Could also have normal soil. Just we call it normal beds, soil beds. So all these essentially receive. Oh, actually, that was good. Other way around. Do more of this. Duplicate. Good. Also reverse yourself to the bottom. So a move here, here, need a from here to here. Okay. Something like this. Clear as mud. Let's look at the model list, and we have animals in it. They are interactive. Should actually have something. So we need animals. Yourself here. Animals. Here, move. We have items such as wheelbarrow, watering can be interactive, rake, shovel, equipment stuff, and cold frame, maybe some tarp. So even though raised bed will be under equipment structures, game from coding perspective, it is a raised. It's a receptacle. It holds other interactions. So should create a new area. Yes. going to be called structure tools. Tools and structures generally. One tool is wheelbarrow. Take a cold frame. Cold frame, but I think about it, cold frame might actually be a receptacle. We think here goes cold frame. However, thinking of the camera, how feasible is it from the player's perspective to spots here? Could it be done? It could be done. You know, I could write a shader for the top part, the lid part. When we're interacting with it, this shader doesn't render the lid. When you move away, it is visible. So you could actually pick this. This is a receptacle. Okay. Cold frame is a receptacle. Where um, a stone tile. It is an interactive object that we could move it around, remove it from the game world, change its rotation and such. It is by definition interactive. Its tools and structure. So then we need this. Copy this. Here, copy this. Here. Give some time. What else we have? Yeah, I have weeds, which is going to be put in the world by the game itself when you're not tending your garden. So technically, any plant, unless otherwise decided, is an interactive, including weed. Because if it's growing on a soil bed, and it's sort of like there's kind of nowhere to click. It's a big area. Because with raised beds, you could click the raised bed object itself or the trellis, but with soil beds, you do some landscaping. It could be your whole garden. So then, what are you really selecting? Would be sort of like an infinite area to select. So I will consider that as animals and plants. They are kind of more or less freely placed in the world. What else? Besides all these models, I have to look. I'm cutting corners here. What else? I plan benefit writing a class for it. Table and chair, interactive. They are tools and structure. I think this might cover it. And the non-interactive objects are the fence between your house and yours. It is there. You cannot interact with it. You cannot move it anywhere else. There's maybe a tree that maybe by city code you cannot cut it. That kind of. By making your house interactive, we are actually opening a uh, however, the only difference here is maybe with some interactive objects, you will be able to rotate the object, like your trellis. But with some interactive items, you shouldn't be able to rotate. So we need to distinguish between what is the level of interactivity. Linking can be so for animals, maybe you'll scare them. May want to feed a squirrel. scare the raccoon away, sort of thing. So exactly at which level I should write uh, whether the object can rotate or not. Because we don't have interfaces in script. I cannot make it like cannot write an interface I interactive, I rotatable, and we have a very strong node system. But if I have a node that basically permits the object to rotate, I think that kind of makes sense. If I have a node that is responsible for the rotation of for a particular parent, and I just dropping that scene in whatever I want to make rotatable, that might. So then objects actually gain properties through composition of inheritance, which is always suggested. Makes me think, and I apply the same principle to receptacle. If an object has receptacle node, it acts like a receptacle object, not because it's inheriting interactive. Because so much of what I have already written, receptacle, let's look at monstrosity. These three methods, I already have them in. That's the only basic thing. Then I said, okay, if this is going to be the base thing that does stuff, preview triggering, then this receptacle case was taking care of finding the closest spot to do its thing. But then I'm already doing some funny business with all this. I think then the node model has some advantage, but then I will have to depend on signals a lot because the superclasses won't know what's happening. There won't be any subclass. Then I have to pass the information through signal. Interesting. Let's think of another case where I'm dropping a receptacle is a node dropped into the trellis model. Trellis is interactive. Everything is interactive. Then, just like receptacle, I will have an animal node. Interactive animal. Interactive plant objects will plant node. We'll actually have plant class assigned to that plant class will be responsible for managing that plant's growing condition, how much water it, that kind of. So it's sort of self-managed. Kind of like that idea. Then other interactive objects could act like him without actually dropping something, but they will actually trigger the UI. A very similar logic for action that will actually create a different UI, different sets of. And the mix of tools and structures may have their own respective And then whether these nodes are rotatable or not may have a rotatable node inside them or as a sibling to their own node. Okay, so this is an interesting architecture. But I think it has primitives. Can I put a note somewhere? Sticky note. Here comes sticky note. Sticky. Sticky. Scenes. It's well game file. What the hell does this? Not all same type. Some may rotate with let the player rotate there. And I think if an object is rotatable or not, we could make that check in interactive. The class may check whether there's a rotated node, because there's going to be some kind of game controls menu opening, moving things around, right? Whether that menu will have rotate buttons or not, there has to be some check made somewhere. So some may have a rotate node. If the node doesn't exist, we won't display rotate buttons. Therefore, including necessary nodes or not, will find an object's ultimate role and behavior in the game. Done. Attention. Do anything with all the right kind of cat. This is where I later get in trouble, like this day morning. If I start implementing it, probably this half-assed. I'll start today by fixing instead of starting with a clean slate. Sure, tackle it. So what are we doing here? We have trellis. We have all this position info. Okay, we have static body that actually has this receptacle logic. So we are trying to take this receptacle script and create some kind of node that interacts with this guy, these guys, and ultimately put the stuff into the contents. So we have minimum 3 node relationships. Because then it's not going to be as easy as like find the parents and put it in the contents node where I was saying to be some signal passing. Bit more T, but I think maybe more increased complexity. This plan actually sounds from the principle of, when they say when you do your object oriented favor composition over inheritance, at least we are going to be sort of creating a tree of inheritance, interactive leading to receptacle, interactive leading to other types of classes. Um, when we add other cases where not all interactive objects are rotated, we will basically compose any object with the properties. It's promising, at least in the grand scheme. It very think about it and be back. Where should I start? I think I'm going to write a few more design notes here and call it a day or night. It's 8 p.m. here. Trying to practice normal business hours. It's tempting to go, but then yeah, don't take care of other things. Trying to balance the workload of marketing, other things. Relaxing is important, sort of thing. Plus, I will most likely leave this right in the middle of it and not going to be great. For the position parts, I manually created cubes here. That kind of thing should also be done. Shaders or some kind of temporary object creation, because the way we were originally doing what was suitable or not was whether the child count was 0 or not. That's definitely not going to work out right now. That's why I'm returning true. Or what? Because by putting those cubes, the child count we're going to be. So part of this, I'll just maybe this make this bigger. Um, some of these nodes may have to trigger conditional shaders. Those shaders is the word that exists in English. For example, um, receptacles should show the player possible spots drop off seedling. And also, if you have 5 positions but only 2 are available, those 2 should be. So by showing the player possible spots is covering that. There is an apostrophe colon. So that's that. And I think this is where I'm going to stop. And tomorrow is most likely I won't be streaming, or if I do, it'll be after 6. So short stream. But Wednesday and Thursday, I can do this full all day. At least starting at noon till 6. That's the schedule. So not much has been done, but a lot of things have been discovered and decided on. So we will now forward with a much more solid plan that will hopefully prevent stupid things like this that are drawing lines between one correct spot and an imaginary incorrect spot. That's it for now. So have fun, be safe, and see you in a couple of days.